Hello there. I'm Richard from React Academy, and yeah, today I just wanted to do a quick video, hopefully keep it down to under 30 minutes, about React hooks, more specifically how you would go about using the useState. Just want to share some of the things that I've learned about it. I mean, it's very new for everyone. So anyway, I will not ramble further. Let's get into the code. So what you're looking at now is this very simple application. This is one that we use at React Academy normally when we do trainings to teach componentization, breaking things down into different React components. So it has this toggle over here. It's very simple. It also has down here this filter. You can see these books here filtering. Very fancy. Anyway, yeah, first things first, obviously at the time of recording of this video, React hooks is a proposal still, which means it's subject to breaking changes. So do be aware of that. It's not really recommended to use it in your production code, but all of the evidence would suggest that it is going to be integrated into React in the new year, given that everybody really likes it. So you will need to install the alpha version. I've actually just printed it to the screen down there so you can see what I'm doing, but you can also, if you have a look at the code, once you've done npm install React at next, you should see that you're running the alpha version of React. How do I know it's React at next? You can actually do npm info React if you're kind of curious. And you can see here that the next is, in fact, the 16.70 alpha 2, which is the one that we're running. So cool. That's pretty much what you need in order to get started. Well, that, and you'll need to spin up create React app, or you can just use this repository if you're interested in doing that. You can come over here. It's over here in React Academy. All of our materials are open source, so you can just check that out and go into the Thinking in React repo. It's right there. Nice. All right, so let's get into it. So yeah, I just wanted to share a few things that I've been learning about this, which is interesting. So yeah, you'll need to import here at the top React and useState. So what we're looking at here is the app, which is this top level component, and it has this toggle menu class method, so normal React things, and it just toggles the menu, the thing that I just showed you a second ago. Why is it up here? Because it's used in more than one place. It's used in the menu, so we pass down the function via props, and also in the napper. So we're going to refactor that in a second, but first I just want to briefly share some other things about the useState, which I find quite interesting. So I'm just going to comment out that so that I don't get any console errors and this, and just create something new. So now in this world, there's no more classes, which is awesome because functional programming is cool. So we actually just need a function. If we call that function app, then be the same as before. And now it's just a function, so it returns something. In this case, just for a very simple example, let's just return an h1 here from our function that says hello hooks. Well, there's no hooks yet, actually. We're not even using that. But anyway, let's just have a look. Yep, looks like things are working over there. Cool. Let's add some other stuff. If you're going to use more than one parallel element, you will need to wrap it in something. So you can use this React fragment. That's been around since React 16.3 or so, I believe. So yeah, otherwise, you get this error. You need to wrap everything in a div, but this fragment allows you to not introduce unnecessary new divs. So that's pretty cool. Nice. So what I want to do is just add an input as well. And that input is going to have a type of text, although that's actually the default, so we would get that anyway. But cool. So let's see. Yeah, we have a text input. Nice, and I can type in it. Wonderful. So right now, that's what's known as an uncontrolled input. You could say that, yeah. Why? Because who knows what the value of this thing? Well, the input itself is the only one that does. So what we want to do is actually take control of that value, because React is all about managing state. There are ways to deal with uncontrolled inputs, and controlled and uncontrolled is kind of its own topic, so I won't delve into that. But we want to take control of this thing. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we want to set the value. Like, I'm going to tell you what your value is. So I could do that. I could set it to like hello, and it's like, now the value is hello, but now I can't type, because every time Dom tries to update it, React is like, no, I'm telling you what your value is, and that value is hello. So what we want to do is set that value, as you can imagine, to something dynamic. Let's call it text value. And yeah, so now we're going to need some state in order to do that. And we're going to obviously need to be able to change that value as well. But let's just have a quick look at how this useState works before we do that. Let me just put this back to an empty string so I don't break everything in a second. Yeah, so let's have a look. So let's get the useState. So we're just inside a function. So before the return, so I can just declare a new variable here. Let's just call this thing state, and let's set it equal to the useState and see what we get. I think that's quite an interesting exercise. So what I'm showing you now is literally what I did when I first started looking at hooks, because I like to understand what's happening. So I do recommend that. Playing with things is good. What do we get other than this warning? We got this array. So yeah, the first thing here to note is that you're always returning an array from that. So when it's imported from the library, useState returns an array. That array has two elements. You can see here that the first one is undefined, and the second one here is a function. And that function is what's actually going to update the state, and the first value, this value here, is going to be what the current value is. And so the value which is passed in as an argument here to useState is your initial value. So if I set that equal to an empty string, then now we would expect that the first value is an empty string and the second value is that function, which we'll come on to in a second. So it's an array with two items in the array. And you could obviously do this, and now actually we could put back this. So if I say your value is now going to be, no, we can't do it just yet, actually. Getting ahead of myself. So we said that it's equal to the first value. So the text value, let's declare a variable, and we said that was equal to the first value of that array. So that's state 0. So let's just set it equal, the value equal to the text value. Nothing too complex, hopefully. Okay, great. But now we're back in the same situation, right? It's a control component, and I've just set its value fixed to hello, and it's never going to change because I set the value. We want to make that thing dynamic. So that kind of brings us on to the second thing, which is this function that you can use to actually operate on the state, the current state. So let's call that set text value. And by the way, I could name these whatever I wanted. There does seem to be a bit of a convention forming that for the function that's updating state, you would call it set something, and obviously the value itself, yeah, I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but it's good to be as semantic and declarative as possible with when you're naming function variables, because code is written for people, not computers. So if your colleagues don't know what you're talking about, it's not going to be much good. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So I've got this set state value, which now is going to be equal to that function, which was the second item in the array. Okay. And what we're going to pass that function is the new value that we need. So we're going to now need an onChange over here. And this onChange listener, when something changes, it's going to trigger that synthetic event there. And what we want to do is pass the value that the user puts in to our set state value and set it equal to whatever the e.target.value is of that. So that should have the effect of letting us take control of this thing. Oh my God, and it does. Wonderful. So same as before, right? Like that's our state now. Cool. That's nice. So yeah, that's very basically how hooks work and useState. There's something that we can do here, which is quite important because it is probably the way that you're going to do it. Instead of like putting things out like this, in JavaScript, you can use array destructuring. So it is the same to declare two values with the destructuring syntax and say here text value and set state value. And we can just put those, structure those from useState, because we know that that thing returns an array. So then we're going to have, it's doing exactly the same thing as this. That's the idea. Let's get rid of that. That's going to break. But let's have a look at what the text value is. Yeah, looks like it still works. Nice. So yeah, nothing magic here. That's first important point. Like, and this is the way that now we're going to manage state in this world. So, which is great. You know, no more class syntax, no more boilerplate, and all of that. Just because we need to like manage some state. So, having done that, the other thing maybe you're wondering is like, well, before I had those change handlers, well, we can have those change handlers. Let's create one. Handle text change, and we can just set that equal to the function that we call that we have in here, change handler. Okay, and put that in here. Nice. See if it still works, and it does. Great. Things are incrementally improving. Yeah, I mean that is recommended using change handlers because if for no other reason, I mean, it's not like an optimization that's going to change very many things, but yeah, it's much more readable. And obviously, yeah, it's good to keep the things up here where we can see what's going on easily, and then we just simply pass it down there. Cool. So let's do something slightly more complex. Well, not very much. Let's just add another input. So we have the two bits of state over here to manage. Let's just make this one a checkbox. Checkbox. Fancy. Yeah, that's it for now. Okay, we now have a checkbox. Great. So we also want to do a similar thing here, right? So we're going to need this value, and we're going to have something here which is like checkbox. Let's call it checkbox status. And we're going to need also an on-change handler again, which is going to be something like handle text box. Oops, text box, checkbox. Okay, so having made those already, let's just implement that. So like I said before, we're going to actually have a new piece of state here. So let's take the same approach as before. Let's take this guy and right here, put them up there. And now we're just simply going to set, well, I want an equals. We're going to set the initial value here to false because it's going to be a toggle, which is this one that we're doing now is what we're going to actually refactor down here later. Basically, I mean, it's this idea of toggling. It's not much different to the other one, but there are some subtle differences. Cool. Okay, cool. So we've done that. That's great. But now we are going to also need another change handler. So what did we call this thing? Handle checkbox status. I'm not sure I like that name that much, but anyway, this one, we don't need to read anything from that synthetic event, so we can just return a function which calls oh, actually, I've named this thing incorrectly. Set checkbox status. So handle checkbox status is a function which is going to actually operate using this. Oops. Control Z. Okay. So let's do something here. So yeah, we could actually just put in here whatever the opposite of the current checkbox status is. And let's just check if that works first, and then I'll talk about something about that. Yeah, looks like it, but we're not actually logging it. So maybe let's just have a look if we now have that thing in the state or not. True, false, true, false. Yeah, it looks like it's working. Okay, yeah, so this is fine, but you can also do what's known as a functional update. So if you've been using set state before, you'll be familiar with this, that you can actually pass in here a function where the argument is the previous state, and then you operate on that. Now, the reason for that is basically that these state updates are asynchronous, so you don't know exactly the order that that's going to happen in. So if you're doing an operation that relies on the previous state, it's better that you take this approach. So yeah, it talks about this over here in the docs, which are really good. I do recommend to read the docs if you're watching this. Yeah, so if it's computed using the previous state, you can simply pass a function to set state, and that function will receive the previous value and return an updated value. So this is really kind of a similar idea to with set state. So this is a good kind of example of that. Probably in reality here, it's not necessary, but if you were doing network operations and things like that, then like, yeah, definitely. But I would say it's a good practice anyway. So let's do that. Let's pass it that function. So let's say, as in previous state, we can just say, I just want you to be the opposite of whatever the previous state was. So that should have the effect of a toggle. It's reloading. And it's still working. Wonderful. Cool. Nice. So that's good. Yeah, so we basically have everything that we need going on here. At this stage, I think there's something here that's quite interesting as well to think about, which is it's recommended that currently it's recommended that you kind of split up your state as you wish. So we're in charge of this now. Like we've decided to split up this bit of state. But you know, sometimes two bits of state inside a component might move together or change together, and you can consider taking that approach as well, which is what we're going to just have a quick look at now. So you could actually, because this useState, it doesn't just accept primitive values, it will also accept things, objects, so, or whatever you want. So we could actually take the same approach as before, that looks more similar to the old class API. So we could actually say state and set state here, and then we could pass the useState and object. Now we're going to need to do something slightly different. So now the text, so let's do the initial values to this. So the initial value, text value, I'm not going to change any of the names, it will complicate things. The text value, and let's have the checkbox status. And let's initialize that to false. So, okay. Cool, that's good, but we are going to need to do some more refactors, as you can imagine, in order to make this work. Let's just comment out these lines here, just leaving them there for reference at the moment. So that will have broken it. So now the value here is going to be state.textValue, and the value here is going to be state.checkboxStatus, which is going to be true or false. And then we just need to update our change handlers as well. So now we need to use the set state, both here, and that set state now, we're expecting here an object. So we need an object. And yeah, we want to update here the text value. And in the case of this one, we want to make an object over here. So here we return an object, and we are going to set that object to, what do we call it? Checkbox status. Checkbox status. Okay, why is it complaining here? Yeah, one cool thing about VS Code is it does complain. That's because I'm using an implicit return. If you do that, like the thing is that it thinks that it's a JavaScript here is like the engine is interpreting this as like a function, right? Because it sees the arrow function as some curly braces. So if you want to return an object, you will need, we're using an implicit return like that, you will need to add some more curly braces, normal braces. Cool. Let's just now log out state here. Let's call it state, and let's just to be clear. So now we're using our set state. Let's see if this works. Well, looks like it may not because something is upset. Did this not? There you go. Giving me clues. Okay, so now let's get rid of that. So now here we have our state. Great. So we've got a text value and a checkbox value. Let's see how that works. So now if I type, I've got text value and I've got the text. And now if I click, and a warning, yeah, which is interesting, I'm getting false every time. So let's just fix that quickly. Yes. Now it's state, right? So not that. So not pref state dot checkbox status. True, false, true, false. But what you probably noticed over here, it's actually wiping the whole thing. So it's not behaving in the same way as set state did before with the old class syntax. See, it's wiping it. Like if I click this, you see I've just now in my state, I've just totally wiped out what the text value was, which is not great. So what is the reason behind this? Well, it does warn you about this here in this big yellow note, that unlike set state, useState doesn't automatically merge update objects. So, but you can replicate this behavior by combining the function updater with the object spread syntax. That's true. We can use the spread operator in JavaScript, which is what we're going to do. Yeah, another option is the use reducer, which we're not going to talk about here, but another time perhaps. Yeah, let me know if you find this video useful, and maybe I can make one about the use reducer. So let's just do that. Let's fix this problem. How do we fix this problem? Well, we are now going to have to implement our own, let's call it shallow merge. So yeah, how would we do a shallow merge using that thing? Well, we need a function which takes in the partial state as an argument. And then from there, we actually will return out a call to set state. And that set state is going to take in that previous state, the callback that we talked about before. That is going to return this object. And I put the curly braces around in advance this time. And then we just need to spread these. Use the spread operator here. So the partial state and the let's do it the other way around, not that it really matters. So let's take whatever the previous state is and have the partial state there as well. So in that way, now let's implement this. So this shallow merge. So instead of using our set state now, we're going to use the shallow merge over here. There's nothing that we need to update there, but this one is going to break. Now we can simply just pass it this object. And we can just say, okay, let's have a look if that works. And going to use the shallow merge. Let's have a look. Not at the docs. Okay, so now still getting the same thing. Oops. Let me just reload this. There you go. Yeah, sometimes it's interesting. It should automatically reload and reload the bundle, but from time to time that happens. You actually have to hit reload. But anyway, there you go. So this is what we wanted. We got the text value here and the checkbox. So now when we update the text value, we're not wiping whatever the checkbox status boolean was over there. So you see, I can just affect both of those. Amazing at the same time. Really cool. So I think that that's something pretty interesting to note about this. Like I said before, though, it's kind of up to you how you deal with this. It depends. Like in this world, you're in charge of deciding if those two bits of state move together or not, whether you want to kind of like, if they're closely coupled, then you could take this approach if you want to. Cool. Yeah, that's more or less everything that I wanted to mention, I think, about the use state. I think that's like the core thing. So let's just do a quick refactor, like what we started with. So I can actually just comment out all of that. And let's get back this thing. So, yep, we don't need that anymore. Let's get back to where we were before. And we're back with this toggle thing that still works. Okay, so let's have a quick look quickly at how to just refactor this in order to use the hooks instead. So what have we got going on here? And this is going to be should be really simple. So the first thing is there is no more class, so we're not going to need this constructor anymore, and we know that this toggle is just to open true or false, so I'm just going to delete all of that. This is now going to be a function. Oops, typing the word function, a function, and we don't have this class syntax. By the way, class syntax in JavaScript is syntactic sugar. There aren't, it uses prototypal inheritance under hood. There are no classes in JavaScript, to be clear. But and that's something that nobody liked. And I believe that even the React team were not very keen on that. But that was how we got access to the API, because you needed to use class syntax in order to, because you're extending directly from React.component, right? So that's how you got access to the lifecycle methods, and also how you would do state. So anytime you needed to manage state or use lifecycle methods, you basically had to use that class syntax in React. No longer. Anyway, I digress. Let me get back to this. So we do not need this render anymore. It's a function, which is going to return something. Still the same piece of JSX is going to return. Okay, so we just need to implement some hooks things here. So let's have what is this thing called? It has an is open. Okay, so let's call this menu status. Yeah, let's just call it menu status. And set menu status. And this is a declaration. So again, same thing as before, right? The use state. And we are going to initialize that as false. So this is going to be very similar to the thing that we did before. Okay. Great. So now I want to actually just, we'll deal with this class method in a second. Well, there's no class, it's no longer a class method actually, but we're just going to change it into a regular function in a sec. So the is open that we're passing down as a prop here to menu is now just going to be that menu status. And the function is the set menu status. Let's do both. Cool. Okay. Now this toggle menu is just going to be toggle. So we can just do an implicit return here. And let's just get rid of all of that. It's not really helping very much. So we just want to do a return here where we toggle. So we just need to do the well, let me just be lazy and do the same thing as we had before. Well, so I can't copy and paste it. Never mind. Okay. Oops, that was silly. It's not going to be that. The function is still the function. We're going to do that. Okay. I think we have everything we need. What is this complaining about now? I'm not sure. Let's just see what happens. Where is the error? Oh, okay. 35. Okay. And we're back. Oh my god, and it doesn't toggle. Wonderful. That's not ideal. So what's going on over here then? Set menu status. Menu status is open. This video is going to extend out if I don't solve this problem quickly. But yeah, needless to say, let's have a look. Have a quick look at what this menu status is. Okay. Let's see. That one, click handler, isn't working. Ah, yeah, because I just messed up the implementation of this thing. So we need to do there you go. I need to do that. Okay. True, false, true, false, true, false. All right, cool. So yeah, that was just a very basic one. And yeah, that's how I would go about refactoring one of these things. As you can see, it's like very new for everyone. So yeah, easy to make mistakes over there. But yeah, that's basically how the useState works. So that's how I'd go about refactoring this. You may be thinking, what about this thing down here? Yes, well, I think this video is getting a bit long, so I'll leave that to you. But if you're interested, that is over here in the books index. Books index there, and I will let you have a go at refactoring that one in your own time. It's slightly more complex, but not really. I mean, there's a select filter, there's like 2 bits of state here, so you could, yeah, you can have a think about how to split that up, or whether or not you need actually to use the shallow merge that we were talking about before. Yeah, have a look and you can let me know what you think. Cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and if you think it's useful, then yeah, tell us, and feel free to subscribe, and maybe we'll make some more videos. One last thing, in case you're curious, what is Regulus Academy? Not that. Oh, okay, well, we can do it in this window if that's tabitis over there. What is Regulus Academy? That's interesting. Every time you hit return, it opens a new window. Anyway, this is Regulus Academy. So we do boot camps for professional developers to level up in the Regulus ecosystem. We do those in both Lisbon and London, and soon Barcelona and Amsterdam as well. In person, because we value the in-person learning experience. And yeah, we're just getting started with videos. So if you find videos useful, like, let us know, and we'll make some more of them, probably just for the community. So yep, that's us, and the repo's over here. So cool. All right. Yeah, so thanks again, and until next time, take it easy, and yeah, happy new year, because it's about to be.